Ryan, how are you, my man?
I'm well, dude.
That is
Really
excellent.
feeling nice after we did that little eye gazing activity
Yeah,
together.
so for the people watching or the people listening, what did we do just then?
So we took a moment just to connect into each other by looking at each other in the eye,
Yeah.
which is something that I think isn't really, I don't do it enough with people. But because we're two new dudes, we've seen each other on the periphery, we're just meeting each other, I would naturally have like a pretty strong ego, an achiever, want to make things happen. It's nice just to drop out of my head and get into my heart. And it's interesting because if we didn't do that activity and we did this whole podcast, I could have been in my head the whole time.
Mm.
Then you could, and then we could have chatted after, kind of connected on the surface, and then you could have left. And we're like, even though we're so close, we didn't really see each other for who we were. So that was really nice just to connect in and actually see that we're so similar as well.
Yeah. And I think that people, I guess in society, like I know this myself as well, I didn't want to look people in the eyes because I didn't want them to see me. I wanted to hide. Like if you look someone in the eyes, you see a lot. And I think by people not doing that, they can close off. They can keep hidden from the world and from other people. How can you connect with someone if you can't look them in the eye?
Yeah. You can't at the deepest level, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think you can have an understanding that they're so similar to you. I think that's what like practices such as like meditation and connecting in nature and learning about spirituality and development of consciousness, that those sort of activities help people see themselves and others and see how we're all one, that old stigma. But even with my girlfriend recently, we've been setting an intention to connect so much deeper. And we realized that we were coexisting, but weren't really going super deep with each other because we were really scared. We still have a little bit of a fear because we've gone through so much together of really showing our full hearts in the same. It's like if one person's feeling a little bit down, the other person will pick them up and then it'll almost swap. Or if one person's got a little bit of agitation at the other person can hold the space and then it'll swap. But if both people are in a state of like open heart and then it gets pointed at each other with full attention, then our hearts felt nervous. And we're like, wow, we really have opportunities to work through some like fear of living with our hearts on our sleeves and do that together. So we've been eye gazing every night recently, which is probably why it came out as an idea before we did the podcast to do it with you. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. I think that it was, I was going to ask, I was like, do you do it with your partner? Because that'd be something that so many people, I know I haven't had a relationship for many years, but even in relationships, I wouldn't sit and eye gaze. Like even I do it now with friends because I've been to events where it's something that, it's a connection thing and also to be seen and to let down guard and to really connect with someone. But, normally I've done it, not you don't just look at people and like intentionally look at them to make them uncomfortable, but connecting with someone, it's not, time and place definitely when you're having that one-to-one conversation. But I think for people they're so, it's awkward for people to do that.
Yeah, definitely. It's confronting.
Yeah.
And I see for me, I did it as I was facilitating workshops. You asked me before, do you do this in your workshops? And yeah, I do. And then I realized I was even had a fear of doing it more with the person that knows me for all of who I am, that knows all my triggers and I know all her triggers, and our egos flare and clash and we grow through all sorts of turbulence together. For us, it was even harder to eye gaze. It's easy to do with a stranger, in my opinion.
How do you think the relationship changed, like in terms of depth, when that started being implemented? Like how long were you together before this was introduced?
We only started doing it 3, 4, 5 days ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've done it at random points in the past, but it's a consistent nightly a practice to do every evening. It has brought a clear intention between us that we want to go there. And before it was almost like we both knew that we weren't connecting at the deepest level. And we do a lot of coaching, relationship coaching, probably a weekly session with some coach together to work through our inner childhood wounds and bring topics up to the surface. But we've just been evolving and growing it through so much stuff ourselves. It's really been a huge evolution over the last 2 years for both of us, dropping so many layers of ego programming and insecurities. And that's, I haven't fully integrated out of that, nor has she. So with the intention, it's like, we both feel confident and clear and vulnerable, knowing that we're going to do this together,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having that connection and support along the way, especially as a relationship, like you want that support from your partner, and you want to give that support by having that connection, that deep connection, and having that intention as well. Man, it would just be so powerful.
Yeah.
Between a relationship.
Yeah, I think I've been very supportive from like a physical. I talk about this concept that stemmed from Vedic wisdom called the 3 layers, but I call it the 3 lenses, and it's like physical, emotional, spiritual, reality, or a lens from which to view the world. So from a physical reality, like a common sense, logical, we're in the real world perspective, practical, I was very supportive from that angle. But in terms of like seeing her for the depth of who she is and allowing her to know that that's accepted and amazing and brilliant, then the support's been lacking in that department, and vice versa. So yeah, it's very nice.
Good awareness though in a relationship to notice that.
Yeah. I think you go for it.
Yeah. Oh no, keep going on that topic.
Awareness.
Yeah.
Let's keep going on awareness.
And
all right. So this is going to be a 5-hour podcast on awareness.
I love it. So I've followed your journey for quite a number of years,
yeah.
And seen a lot of transitions, but a lot of your stuff I've commented, watched the videos, and learned a lot of stuff. So thank you. So it's really nice to be able to connect like this, and that's why I love this podcast and having these connections and conversations, because I get to really connect with anyone I want that inspires me, and then share that relationship and connection with them. But for the people that don't know who you are or haven't seen much of your stuff, can you give us a wrap up of your life from start to where you are now and everything that you're doing?
How long would be the perfect amount of time for me to share this?
10, 15?
Holy crap.
Yeah.
All right. Brilliant. That's a great amount of time. So
I want the juicy stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go full into transparency and vulnerability, and I'll share learnings that I've got from the journey, because I think I've dug out multiple layers, and I kind of dug a little bit to a certain depth and then thought, I've stumbled across like what life's really about. And then I kind of settled it in that layer and then went, sweet, I've got this covered. And then, found some like skeletons and then went, oh shit, there's more depth. And then like dug more and then more depth and dug more. So it's like multiple layers. So I grew up in a household that was quite drug abusive and lots of pressure. And I grew up as a very anxious child. Same with my sister, Ali. We grew up in a household that did not foster great internal grounded self-worth. We're both very, very, very quiet and anxious at school. When I was in prep, the principal of the school had to like literally claw me off my mother's arms because I was screaming. I just did not want to leave her side because I was so scared to go out and meet people. And that slowly throughout primary school, because my dad always gave me attention, or he gave me praise when I thrived in sport or in anything I succeeded or achieved, then that's what made me feel a sense of love from him. So that was my main motivator. And everyone has this, by the way. It's called your survival script. We talk about it in so many different modalities in personal development, but 0 to 7, we develop this script which we subconsciously operate in the world using this script, because what it essentially does is we're convinced that if we follow the points that we've got, the instruction manual of this script, then we do the things on here, and then our parents like us more. And if our parents love us because we follow this script, then it means as young kids we're going to be protected because we're dependent for survival from our parents. And so when your parents give you praise or they discipline you for certain things, that's kind of like called positive stroke. Like, let's say, for example, you did really well in a drama performance, and then your mum's like, you are incredible. That's amazing. Like, I can't believe how well you expressed your creativity.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. All these different praises, positive strokes. Then your script might be like, okay, cool. When I'm creative, I get praise. That means they love me. That means they'll keep me safe. I'm going to keep being creative. But if you're like really loud when, let's say, family friends come around, you get a bit excited and you sing or you shout, and then your parents are like, keep it down around other people. That's a negative stroke. That could imprint and become a really key point that you take down in your script. And then you may never express yourself because you think that then you're going to be told off. There's a condition for love. And if you cross that condition, if you don't do that, then you're not going to be safe because they won't protect you. And so that might be a survival script. So for me, it was an achiever. I had to achieve to feel a sense of love. And so I did anything that I could to be successful. So throughout primary school, I developed confidence because I just like went hard at everything like maths and chess. Like I was a chess champion. I was really good at maths. I got the academic award in primary school, but I was also like played state for most sports and cross country and stuff like that. So I was very anxious inside, but I was very externally successful as a young little junior. And then I went to high school, and right at the start of high school, my mum, she left my dad. So my dad was a drug dealer. My mum was an alcoholic, and she was recovering. But my dad didn't want her to kind of like leave and become better because he was scared that he would then be left. And so that dynamic caused my mum to stay in that abusive relationship for too long. She was very suicidal. She left. And when she left, myself and my sister didn't see our mum for about 4 years. And that shattered our confidence because we were living with my dad, who was also suicidal. And he had no sense of self-worth in the world other than us. And so throughout the whole experience, that dropped my confidence again. So starting primary school, right at the bottom, built it up through achieving, which is conditional confidence and self-worth for myself, then dropped right back down to the start. And then it took me probably 4 years until I started to get some kind of self-worth back, which is also conditional. Then I started doing fear challenges in the end of year 12. And I left, actually moved out of home in high school, moved out of my dad's place because it was just getting too much and it's quite abusive and whatnot. And then I got into doing fear challenges, got into business, and I forged my own way. And over a period of, so from 18 to 21, I just experimented in lots of different businesses. I built a 6-figure business when I was 18, selling websites, cold calling over the phone. And that made me feel like I was somebody and something. And it was a very, like finding a conditional set of confidence in terms of who I was. I felt good in who I was. But it was very, very hypey confidence. And then I started winning international, and which was a business that helped life coaches get clients and build successful monetary businesses where they could make 6 and 7 figures, of which I've only recently stopped accepting clients into. But I grew that from 0 to 7 figures in 10 months when I was 21, and then just like kept growing it. And because my script all the way from when I was young said that I had to achieve to feel a sense of self-worth, it wasn't like I was going to hit a certain milestone and that was enough, because the achieving was like I was addicted to achieving, and the conditions never stopped. So I just changed the conditions all the time because achievement was subjective and the bar would always be raised. So I was never really feeling okay with who I was for where I was at. This is something we talk about in personal development all the time, but I was completely unaware. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was doing the noble thing by being really courageous and being really risky in business and trying to be a role model for others with those traits. And then when I realized, after I started meditating, and I also had a bunch of feedback from life and the universe and in my business, that I was growing too fast. And I started to hit some roadblocks financially with HR, because I had 25 full-time staff at this point and we had a multi-million-dollar business. And then I had an executive that stole a bunch of money. I made some financially poor decisions, like renting an office for 100 staff, which was just not a very good financial decision. And all this stuff started to break down at the same time, which I could get through, but hit me a lot financially. And then also at the same time started meditating, which gave me awareness over my patterning of where this drive was coming from. And so I got hit for 6, which in Australia is like, when you play cricket, just means hit for a home run, essentially. Just knocked flat on my butt, because I was like, who the fuck am I? Who the hell am I without success? Who am I without winning international? Who am I without being someone that's better than others? Because I thought I needed to be special in order to be loved. And then without that, I had to learn to develop a sense of self-worth and love within who I am without anything, just as a being, just as a soul, just as a human. And that's essentially where I am at the moment, developing that sense of unconditional love of self. And it's caused me to make decisions that are based upon following my passion and what I enjoy to do over and above what's going to make the most money.
Yeah. So you're really going into a more intuitive approach and not just, hey, this is what society, I should be doing because that's what society says success is, or somebody else says success. You're really looking within to find it.
Yeah. Because for me, it hasn't really been a comparison versus society. It's been more of a comparison versus myself.
Yep.
And like the sort of goals that I had in my head before I realized where I was driving from was, I want to have a net worth of $10 billion. Like I want to have a $300 million business in 5 years' time. So for that to happen, everything was sacrificed. And I was prepared to sacrifice everything because my self-worth was on the line. And there's nothing else. My fulfillment, this fake sense of fulfillment was being dangled in front of me, by me, with these really ridiculous targets. For what? For nothing. Just to recreate that achievement that would then become inflated and dangled even further away.
Yep.
So yeah, I really made a big distinction between driving for success versus choosing fulfillment. Meditation had a huge part to play in that. And just feedback from the universe.
Yeah.
Knocking me on my ass.
As it needs to do sometimes.
Yeah.
If you're in those patterns. When you were in all of that, how did it affect other areas of your life? Or were you thriving in all areas of your life because of you were focusing on that, I guess, those goals that you were achieving? Or were other areas affected but you were just kind of pushing them away?
Yeah, so there's the physical element of, or like the direct logical element of success in different areas, and it seemed to be going well, meaning that like had a beautiful partner, had a beautiful like lifestyle with like all the physical material things, had a thriving business. It seemed like I was catching up with lots of cool people, lots of cool friends. In terms of the depth of my relationship to all those things, didn't really exist. And also
were you aware of that, or
no,
it was just like a normal? Yeah.
Nah, because I was super insecure without knowing it. Like I always craved grounded confidence, but I had no idea what that looked like or what that was. Yeah. And I was looking for grounded confidence in my ego, which is impossible to gain because the ego is subjective and it's conditional. So like I'd think, okay, cool, I'll get more success and that'll make me more confident, which it did. But then if that thing that I attached confidence to was to then change, then all of a sudden in a second, all of my self-worth could just drop, which is what happened, which woke me up and went, holy crap. I don't actually have a real sense of confidence in who I am. Yeah. So to answer your question, everything in my life looked fantastic, but inside it was very shallow. Yeah. Which is not very nice.
Yeah. And I think it's something that is becoming more open, and people are talking about it and having these realizations, whether it's the social media people with hundreds of thousands of followers, or the business owners that made millions but saying, but I didn't actually like myself, or didn't actually like my life. It's showing that the things that people thought were success, the material things, the doing, the achieving, sometimes just that's not the most, well, sometimes it isn't the most important thing if you don't like yourself.
Yes.
Or if you don't have that self-worth.
Yes. Yeah. I think we're redefining success as a society, but it's hard to have a frame of reference if you're just like learning to walk in the world. Like someone that comes out of high school whose exposure and environment from watching movies and from being taught by their parents and teachers, and now social media influencers. Like, for example, if you follow Grant Cardone and you're 18, you're going to set yourself up for like a journey of conditional love for yourself.
Yeah.
There's just no way that you could have a different frame, because he's saying you got to go 10 times bigger, or you're not getting the most out of your life. And a young, malleable brain from anyone that's young, and I know you talk to a lot of younger guys, it's not that any of the success is bad, because if you look at like my place is really nice. I like nice things. I like to travel, but it's more like it's a lot more centered around what I actually care about, which is connection, being in really nice environments, like going to a forest with people I care about, or going and doing an activity I really like. I love playing sport. So if I'm playing tennis, for me, because I love tennis, that's awesome. But if I was to buy expensive clothes, and the reason behind, and I don't actually value clothes, that's just ridiculous, which is what I did. I think I spent $4K on some new clothes at one point, and I just don't care that much about clothes. Like this, I think was $50. These were $50. These were $60. And that's, so what's that? $160 or whatever. And I spent, like, I had outfits that were worth over $1,000. I don't even care. These are beautiful. I love what I've got on. Why would I spend more than that? It just doesn't make any sense. And why would I then create a requirement of financial success to be more than what I actually need to feel fulfilled? Because I didn't actually feel, or my car, for example, I had a $180,000 car, C63 AMG, beautiful car. But when I got in the car, it instantly put me into a state where I compared myself with other people and I looked for validation just by getting in the car. Must have been a trigger for it or something. And so I was spending, what cost, it was like 2K a month or something like that to be in a car that if I really loved cars and I valued it, then I could just pay $1,000 to go and race Lamborghinis for a few hours at a racetrack instead of paying $180,000 for the car. That doesn't make any sense. So I told myself it was because I like cars, but I didn't actually.
Yeah.
So I think it's about...
Was that you taking on, I guess, other people's values or things that you had seen and going, if I'm going to be successful, I need the car.
Yeah. Well, my uncle actually had that car.
Yeah.
And because I had such high expectations to myself, and he got his car in his 30s and he really made it as an entrepreneur. I got my car when I was 22 and I was like, if I can get my car 10 years before him, that means I'm on a really good direction. So I just created that random invisible rule of like, if I get it by 22, then blah, blah, blah. That means that I'm doing really well and I'm successful. And how good will I feel then? I didn't actually feel good.
Yeah.
Like short-term gratification. I'll talk about the difference between ego and essence with any personal development concept. Like, let's say you say on the podcast today, cold showers has really helped me. Or I say, hey, buying an expensive car if you don't value cars isn't worth it. That's my opinion. Try it. Like Marie Folio says, try it before you deny it and see how you feel. I think everything's research. Yep. So ego versus essence in terms of activities, I've got a huge list of different activities that I think put you in a state called ego and a bunch of activities you can do that put you in a state called essence. Now for me, I would do a lot of ego tasks, which are all short-term gratification, like watching movies. Like when I was at the height of my success, I looked to escape because I didn't feel fulfilled because I was always chasing and I was always in fight or flight, which meant I was reaching for things to give me short-term hits, like watching movies, buying clothes, drama, gossip, being busy, keeping myself really, really busy, porn. So that there were all these like short-term gratification-based things. Now I felt like shit in those times. And anyone from a research perspective that has like lots of sugar or unhealthy food, you don't feel good when you have it. The taste might be good, but your body doesn't feel good. So it's like worth trying that, but then subbing it, being in nature. Like, and the interesting thing is most of the ego things are really expensive and most of the essence things are really cheap. And the essence things make me feel incredible, really fulfilled. And the ego things make me feel really empty in a bad way, because emptiness and neutrality can be really good, but make me feel really good from a, but these ego things make me feel really like lost, confused, hyper, heightened, shallow, etc. So some more essence-based things: breathing, being in nature, cold showers, connecting with people, like that eye gazing out. I feel awesome now.
Yeah,
I don't know how
too,
you feel. I feel really connected.
Yeah.
I feel like so calm in my body, and I feel so nice. Like I feel fulfilled right now in this moment because we did that activity. Yeah. And this for me is something that I really love to do. I love speaking. I love interviews, and to be interviewing and be interviewed by someone that's really conscious. This is I love this. So that was free. It didn't cost anything. Drinking water doesn't cost anything. Eating high quality foods usually cheaper than going out and getting like expensive short-term gratification based food. So essence based activities are usually cheap or free. Ego based activities are usually really expensive. Like if you went out and if I did go out and race Ferraris, it could give me a thrill. And if I love cars, that'd be a beautiful experience for someone that might light them up more than anything because of the nostalgia and because they grew up with their dad. They loved cars together. That could be a beautiful experience. For me, if I spent $1,000 doing that, hoping that it was going to give me something, versus doing like embodied dance with people that I care about, and having really deep conversations, eating really nice food, doing a meditation, going for a walk in nature as an afternoon in the same amount of time, I would be feeling so grounded, so amazing. Like in my body right now, I feel full. If I went to there and I came home, I'd be on a downer off the up. I'd be feeling a little bit like scattered, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that. Try it. So for those that are listening, if you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Essence versus ego. I wonder if I can link them just like people on the podcast,
I can put stuff
like a
in
photo.
Yep, I can put it all in the show notes. Yep.
Okay, cool. Then I'll link 2 files that'll be helpful that I give to people at workshops and stuff. They're just grids that just has like a big matrix of different activities that are ego-based and different activities that are essence-based. And just try looking at maybe the 5 biggest ego traps, which could be like anything. It could be porn, it could be gossip, it could be shopping, like you excessively shopping.
Laziness.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, yeah.
Sedentary behavior, sleeping in. And then you compare it with like the essence-based. So try subbing what you would say is your 3 biggest ego traps that trap you or you go to when you're feeling low. Try subbing them for 3 other ones and just try it before you deny it. See how it makes you feel, and that'll give you a bit of an idea with the difference between ego versus essence.
Powerful. And I think it was reminding me just then, I was listening to a podcast on my way up here the other day, and this is, I'll say it and then I'll continue on from it.
Yeah.
If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy.
Yes.
And hard and easy in the context of, if you take the easy option of the fast food,
Yes.
the more convenient, like making your food can take time. You have to go get it and do all that. You could just order Uber Eats. That's the easy option.
Mm-hmm.
But then the consequences of that, look, you could order some good food on Uber Eats, but the consequences of that, if you don't, let's say a cold shower, that's something else like that, not working out. It's easier not to work out. It's easier to stay at home and watch Netflix. But then later on, you're going to feel the effects, and your life's going to be harder because of having not done those things. But you do the hard things, like going and working out and keeping accountable, putting in the effort, working on your body. That is hard. It's a challenge.
Yes.
It is hard. But it makes your life easier because you get to enjoy it. It's hard to go sit by yourself in the woods and just find stillness and face your whatever, your demons, your thoughts. It's easier to go have a drink and be with mates and talk about superficial shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then that flip side, look, hard and easy, I might need to find new words for those, but I think that's how
relevant.
he said it.
I think it's especially relevant when you're making change or changing the way that you approach your life, which I've been doing over the last couple of years, and I'm still massively transitioning. And evolution is something that's consistent. And that quote that the only constant is change. So when you're first breaking a habit that hasn't served you, it is really hard. Yeah. But then once it's a habit, it's actually harder to do the opposite. It'd be harder for me to have a warm shower now because my neural pathways. There's this process that I learned from there's a scientific word which is myelination. Which means the development of myelin, which is like neural pathways in your brain that essentially is like, when you do something for the first time, it's like going down a really difficult dirt road or like hiking a mountain with it. But over time, it just gets cleared out till it becomes like a 7-lane superhighway. And that process is called myelination, where then the neural pathways become like stronger and more direct, and it's easier to do that habit. So those things that are difficult at the start actually become easier over time. It becomes more difficult to do the thing that doesn't serve you. It just takes quite a long period of time to build and transition so many habits that we've normalized in society that don't serve us.
Mm-hmm. And once you feel those benefits of those, when you do have those times where you go back to or you don't do them, you go, but I like that benefit and how I felt doing those. Like a cold shower, always do it. It's the last minute of my shower is cold. And, I've still got mates that are like, that's crazy. I would never do it. I could only last 10 seconds. And I'm like, but it's just normal now. If I don't do it, I don't feel those benefits that I get when I do it. So, you see that the comparison of what you do then and what the effects are, and what you do in this other situation and what the effects are. And you're like, you get to choose. What do you want? What feels better and what is helping you move forward?
I think it's really valuable to frame your approach to changing behaviors and habits and your life as a big research activity, that is, and what you're researching is your life. Like if you're at university and doing a PhD and you're doing a bunch of research for like, I don't know, bee behavior and how it changes like cultures and societies or something, sub that in for you as the research topic, and everything that you do is custom to you, and allowing yourself to be empowered enough and have enough self-worth that you trust your own judgment on things more than anyone else's, because you know yourself. So a culture for somebody might not be beneficial, and for someone else it might be really beneficial. For me it's really beneficial, for you it's really beneficial. I'm sure for most people it is, but actually framing an activity that you do as a research project, I think is fantastic, because then if you also relapse, society puts I used to feel a lot of guilt if I didn't do something consistently. Like I'd say I knew that I needed to go to the gym, but I chose not to. Then after that, I'd feel really guilty about it. And so actually reframing that relapse or negative thing as being a research activity where I could then just observe the difference in how I felt, then actually helped me make more empowered decisions of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do differently. And so I'd really try to now experience the least amount of guilt that I can possibly experience, which is way easier said than done. But I think guilt is the biggest trap in the whole of society with every human being, because I don't believe much time can be wasted, but I think the only thing, in my opinion, that's one of the biggest wastes of time is experiencing guilt, because then nothing productive's happening. So you could be like, oh, I really want to watch that movie, but then I should work. If you spend 20 minutes between either like both camps feeling guilty, and then you watch the movie and you feel guilty throughout the whole movie, and then you feel guilty after that and the next morning, that all that time was wasted. Whereas if you just went, fuck it, I'll watch the movie, you spent 2 hours and you give yourself permission to enjoy it, then that time's actually, in my opinion, not a waste of time at all. And it's research, because then if you didn't feel 100% after because it was more short-term gratification based and it made you feel a little bit anxious or whatever, then you've got the contrast of watching the movie versus not watching the movie, or what you could have done instead. That research will build on your decision making next time you're in that situation. So I think that's way more of an empowered approach, just research.
It's a great form of self-analysis as well, to see those things and see those habits and then change them as well. You were talking about fulfillment a lot in there, and fulfillment to yourself. What is fulfillment to you? What is it? Fulfillment. What is fulfillment to you?
Yeah, so of recent, and I'm sure my definition will change over time, but it's feeling full, like in a summary, feeling full. And I believe the factors that contribute to fulfillment are love or connection. When you're connecting with another human being, like I think this is fulfilling. Makes me feel fuller. And you guys can contrast this and have a think about it yourself for times when you would spend a few hours or a day or an activity or a time catching up with people you care about. How do you feel in your body? Well, you don't think time goes past pretty quickly. Connection's definitely, I think, one of the things that creates an experience of feeling full. So that's one, love or connection. Growth is another thing. And I think that's something that's unavoidable in life, because there's this concept called creation, maintenance, and destruction, which are these three factors that also stems from Vedic wisdom, which has been the stream of wisdom that I've studied for the last couple of years, like this really beautiful knowledge. So anyone that knows Jay Shetty, who I'm a massive fanboy of Jay Shetty, I think he's amazing. He's a really embodied, grounded leader that does what he loves. I really love this guy. He was a Vedic monk. So all the study that he did over the 3 or 4 years as a monk was full-time studying the Vedas, and I studied over the last year and a half, which has been, I've spent over 500K in personal development, which is pretty crazy. And the study that I've done in total in that area, I think's cost me like 4.5K over 18 months in total. So it's super cheap. And it's been the most powerful stuff. So they've got this concept called the process of evolution. And essentially the theory is that every relationship you have to a person, living things, or any existing, even from a career, person, any area of life, any relationship. So you could have a relationship to a certain food group. You could have a relationship to a person, a friend, a job, or a career path. And so these are all relationships, and the theory goes that every relationship that you have is either in the stage of creating, maintaining, or destructing. And the purpose behind this concept is that destruction is something that we usually resist, right? And we get signs when something's kind of like past its date. So let's say, for example, when you're in a job and you know that you don't enjoy it anymore. And what we tend to do is then when we get these signs, we'll ignore them. So we'll get signs by our boss, like, you know, treating us poorly, or colleagues treating us poorly, or we know we're worth more financially, and someone else gets the promotion or whatever. These are all signs and feedback. It's either time to change the relationship or the relating experience. So either sub out, do something new, or change the way that it's operating. So in the same thing with a relationship with romantically, you're in a relationship with a woman or a man or whatever, and you can either, if you get those signs and you feel in your gut that it's not the right relationship, you stay in there. So they say that you can either have progressive or destructive evolution. You got to have evolution regardless, because nature's always evolving. This is nature's process of evolution, creating, maintaining, and destructing. And so if you can listen to those little signs of feedback and grow, super empowering, because you're always evolving and molding and changing, which is so beautiful when you get in that rhythm. But when you're always resisting change, and when you get those signs from that destruction, in that destruction phase, then you have destructive evolution. So in a relationship, if you get the signs and you stay, the longer you stay, the harder it is to leave, and the more toxic it is when you leave, and the more the time after you've left where you feel a sense of like, you feel a sense of like despair. If you then get married to that person you know you shouldn't be with, it's going to be a lot harder. If you then have kids with them, it's going to be way harder. So it can be destructive or progressive. So growth, I think, creates fulfillment when you get in that rhythm. So that's a second factor. The third one is the sense of belonging. Just feeling like you're a part of what's happening in the world, as opposed to being separate from it. This is like super empowering from my perspective, and something that I was completely shut off to 2 years ago, because I thought it was me versus the world. I thought I needed to thrive as an individual. And then as me succeeding, the more that I am special, and the bigger I become as an individual, even like I wanted to make a difference to heaps of lives, so that me as an individual would be known as the person who's making that difference. So it's still separate. Whereas there's this beautiful word that I learned from Johnny Pollard, who is the man that founded the meditation app called One Giant Mind. And he's also a teacher trainer. So he teaches people to be meditation teachers. That's who I learned to be a meditation teacher through. He's got this concept. It wouldn't have been him that originally had it, but he talks about it in his book, The Golden Sequence. This concept's called Symbiosis. And essentially this word means mutually beneficial. And so he talks about the idea that we're all meant to be thriving symbiotically, in mutually beneficial relationships, and that our planet, which he refers to as a biosphere, is made up of ecosystems in which all the living beings within that ecosystem support each other to thrive. And the only way it can work is if everyone in that ecosystem, or everything in that ecosystem, supports one another. And when something becomes separate and stops playing its role within that for greed or capitalism or whatever. So let's say, for example, like with ISIS or terrorism, when these individuals don't feel like they're respected in a symbiotic way, then they separate, and then they exemplify and magnify and become bigger and start going against the ecosystem. It's because they don't feel recognized within that ecosystem. But you can see it in nature, and also like as Homo sapiens, or human beings, we're designed to be in 40 or 50 person tribes, where we are spending most of our time in nature, most of our time with people and connecting, and we all have a role to play. It's not like a family within that tribe would, like two parents would have a kid, and they'd be talking that kid and being like, all right, when you go to school, you got to thrive and become this person, so you protect yourself. If there was that kind of behavior in the tribe wouldn't thrive. Everyone's got their own way to help the good of the tribe. It's very symbiotic. That's an ecosystem. So that sense of belonging creates a sense of warmth and safety, which gets us out of fight or flight. So when you can surrender to realizing that you're not an individual versus the world, but you're a part of the world, very, very difficult paradigm to shift. And I try my best to be in that sense of belonging. That's the third. And then the fourth is giving, serving, realizing that you can be of service in every moment. And they call it Dharma in Vedic wisdom, but it's essentially means functional contact, Dharma. What do people think about what's your purpose? And because everything's always evolving, I really struggle with this because society, our especially in personal development, like influencers become famous based on absolute principles. So let's say like 10x rule, always go 10x bigger. That's an absolute principle. Some people say it's always about silencing the mind, and that's an absolute principle. And so with all these absolutes, it's difficult because it takes out the ability for a subtle nuance or a discerning decision that's somewhere in between these absolutes to be right for someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get pushed around and bumped around going, shit, okay, I thought it was right for me being in this area, but then I listened to some guy talking about crypto and now that's the way. So I'm going to jump over here.
Yeah.
And so service is not situational. People are searching for that one big absolute direction and that birth purpose that they're given it when they were born. But for me, my purpose has been ever evolving. Yeah. Like originally it was serving tradies with website design and getting them more connected to the web. Then I jumped in and I was a dating coach for a period of time. Then I did Winning International. I was helping coaches. Now it's helping entrepreneurs that are like driving for success, but out of balance to like learn how they can grow faster and more aligned through meditation and then doing mindset workshops. And so for me to say my birth purpose is this, is an intellectual construct. It's not intuitive. It's not situational. It's not relevant. Whereas this word Dharma, which means functional contact, essentially means that in every contact, in every moment, like in this moment, my Dharma is how can I serve at the highest level in this conversation? But then when we get off the phone, have a really good chat, I don't know, who knows, you might say for dinner or whatever happens, then I'll chat with my girlfriend. The Dharma or the purpose, I'm making contact with her then, and the function of how I can be of service will be different tonight than what it is here. It's not I make service because I help entrepreneurs with this. It's like I could help serve by cleaning the house. I could wave and say hello to someone down the street. And so it takes the hype or the hype off purpose and makes it situational. And so I think these are all things that we can do. It's a chicken and the egg. We can do these things to feel fulfilled, or we can feel fulfilled, and these things we do naturally. And so meditation for me, to be honest, it establishes this state and strengthens this function that we all have internally, this state called being. Yeah. And that state of being is naturally symbiotic. And all four of those things are naturally and spontaneously prioritized, leading to greater fulfillment when you meditate. Mm-hmm. And you transition from like an intellectual construct of viewing the world very like with these absolutes to actually being present. It's kind of like the equivalent of playing tennis. Do you play tennis? Yeah? We should have it sometime.
Yeah, we should.
I love tennis. But imagine if you like played tennis and before you started the match, you'd already chosen what you're going to do before the match started. So the guy serves it and you know you're going to try to hit a backhand down the line and it just goes to your forehand and you're just like, just go to the backhand. It'd be so ridiculous. Yeah. That's what people do. They're like, what I need to do is this. I must be an accountant. What if feedback from life says that there's something else bigger for you, but you've already made an intellectual decision? See, intuition is just being present and allowing your environment to help sculpt your best journey, which is frictionless. Doesn't mean it's not it doesn't mean it's not effortless, because it still takes effort. It still takes courage sometimes to get on the right path, but it's frictionless in the sense that you're actually taking help from something greater than yourself. That's a big transition that I've been moving into recently. Anyway, I feel like I've been talking for ages, but these constructs have been fundamentally life-changing for me. So you can tell I'm really passionate about these things.
No, it's amazing. Keep letting it download and come through. It's amazing. Cool. What would you say has been the worst thing that's happened to you, and how is that the best thing that has ever happened to you?
Cool. This is a great question. I think the worst thing that ever happened to me was being put into that family setup where I was loved conditionally. I think that was the worst thing, because as a little kid, all we want is to experience love. That's all we want. And for me, my love was so transient. The times when I experienced love, it was like there were fleeting moments of love, and there was a lot of love that existed, but there was also a lot of friction in between because of the lack of like love that my mum and dad had for themselves. So that was definitely the worst thing. I really skipped over it at one point, and I was like, well, it's made me who I am, and who I am is this, and look at that. But then I look at it through the lens of really what life's about.
Yeah.
When I look at those 4 things and I prioritize fulfillment over success, and I've got so much more empathy for my inner child / little Ryan from the past. And I'm like, he was just such a sweet, young, innocent soul and went through so much. And so that was definitely the worst thing that's happened to me. But the reason that it's the best thing that's happened to me is because I feel as though people that get into personal development and start this journey of spirituality usually come in wounded. And I know I'm so young, and I'm so grateful that I'm on this path.
How old are you?
27. Yeah. So like I'm still, and I would have said 2 years ago again, I'm getting old, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I'm really so young. 27 is so young. Kind of like Gary V's talking about, the more he kind of like grounds, he's like, I'm so young, and he's 42 or whatever he is. I'm so young at 27, and I'm on a path with awareness.
Yeah.
When you meditate, you develop this function called the witness. It's a part of our mind. So everyone's got the thinking voice in their mind. And it's usually in the same voice as our speaking voice. And we're thinking about random shit all the time. You might be like, what should I say next? And then people are listening and like, oh, Ryan's been talking about this. Look at what he's wearing. I've got a shirt like that. Whatever the thoughts are.
Just the chatter that's in there.
Yeah, the chatter. But then there's a part of us that can actually observe those thoughts. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge difference, because the actual thoughts that come up, that are the chatter, is just random content. But the actual observer of those thoughts that can watch them come and go is our true self. That's pure awareness. Mm-hmm. And that function's called the witness. And when you have that witness as something that can observe you mentioned it earlier, you're like, it's really interesting you say that, but what's great is that you're aware of it. I was talking about my relationship, I think, with Danny. Well, that's because I've really stabilized that function of the witness a lot more than 2 years ago. And when you meditate, it's like going to the gym, but for your mind, and you're really like strengthening and giving more ability to that witness to be able to be even more observant. So instead of just like reacting, you can witness and then respond to a lot of things in your life. So yeah, for me, having that function is something that I have now in my mind. I'm so grateful for. Yeah. Because in the whole rest of my life, I can observe and see what's going on and then make calls that are really aligned to me. And something that you said earlier in our conversation, it was before we actually started the podcast, and we were talking about what you're doing with your workshops. And you were saying that I was doing public workshops. I was getting these brilliant people in who are on the journey of personal development already. But I kind of realized that those people have started the journey, and now you've got an opportunity to work with people in a retail, more corporate environment. Yeah. And these people haven't been exposed to personal development. And these people that haven't been exposed to personal development, you being able to get in and create an initial shift is fundamentally life-changing, because they don't have a witness. They don't have any awareness. And for me, I'd kind of been like, wow, I've been going through all this stuff, but at least I've got a witness. Yeah. And I had an old friend that I worked with when I was younger and I played football with when I was younger reach out to me yesterday. And he said, man, I'd really like to find out about your meditation, because I've been going through really heavy mental health stuff. And most of the people that have been coming to my workshop, I think I've had 60 people that I've taught to meditate over the last couple of months. They're all entrepreneurs. They're looking at deepening their experience of life and taking it to the next level. And they go through mental health stuff, but nothing like what this guy who reached out to me has gone through. And it created an instant piece of awareness for me of, even though there's been rough stuff and growth that I've been going through, and therefore turbulence with and challenges with that growth, nothing compared to what some people are going through with just absolute no clarity of what's causing them to feel this deep inner pain to the point where they're suicidal or really deeply depressed. And it just made me go, holy shit, how lucky am I? But most of us in personal development are in a similar position.
Yeah. Whoa. So powerful. There's been so much amazing stuff in here.
I'm loving this so far. It's so much
fun. What would be the best advice you've ever been given?
Okay. So much. Because I've spent over 500K in personal development, I've had lots of things come in.
Give me the $1 million. No.
I would say the best piece of advice has been that I'm actually going to make the call and say it was from my mum, which is, I don't speak to her super often, but she dropped this little bomb last time I saw her. It was really an emotional night. There's crazy stuff happened when we caught up. And she just said, you're okay as who you are. Like, you're okay who you are. Like, you're perfect the way that you are. And I'd say that's advice. And even though I knew that intellectually, I didn't really know that. I wasn't really embodying that knowing. And I think I've had that mentioned to me by Leslie Ann Becker Goodman, who's like an inner child work teacher. I've had that mentioned by Danny, my partner. I've had that mentioned by Laura Poole, my meditation teacher. So that piece of advice has been strung throughout the last couple of years with some really close practitioners that I've worked with. And it's a polarity versus most other people that I've done coaching with. Because, like, let's say when you do NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, the gist of it is that you go back to your childhood and you change an association that you made to a traumatic event so that it's more empowering. And instead of that, whatever you decided or whatever that trauma caused you to believe about yourself or the world, you change your association to that. So let's say someone was raped, which is a lot of people go through stuff like this. And when they're younger, they might create an association that because I was raped, I'm worthless. And then in NLP, you'd go back and you'd be given the opportunity to restructure that. And you'd be like, instead of me being like my belief system, I believe I'm worthless, or just an identity statement, I am worthless, you go, I can do anything I set my mind to. Now that redefining on the surface, or what I just mentioned, everyone would be like, that's powerful. But the problem is that without true awareness over a set of unconditional self-love principles, or the fact of what's causing us to have conditional self-love, that a lot of the time perpetuates the same conditional love script. So for me, anytime I reprogrammed my past, it was always therefore magnifying my conditional love for myself, which was being an achiever. So anytime I went back to my past when my dad was yelling and saying, you know, it's your fault that I'm going to kill myself with a knife, going to slit his wrists. And I went, that actually meant that I can achieve anything that I want. But achieving anything that I want was what I needed to be able to be worthy of self. So I would perpetuate the conditional set of love for myself. Whereas the advice that I received, that's the best advice, was not in any way perpetuating it. It was, nothing has to happen for you to be worthy of love. And so it didn't allow my subconscious programming to choose the association that I got from any of these back memories. It was just, you're worthy of love right now. You don't have to succeed. Well, let's say you go to Tony Robbins, you spend 4 days, and you leave that going, now I'm going to do this, this, this. And they get all pumped up because they're going to achieve these things, and those things are going to make them feel fulfilled and like they've got self-worth. Then they're going to go, most of them aren't going to do it, and then they're going to feel shit about themselves because they needed to do that to feel good about themselves. So I think personal development still, in so many regards, sets people up for conditional self-love. And I was like someone that was well known in the personal development and coaching space because I was courageous and taking action from my script. And I would have passed on that message to so many people that you can do amazing things, but if you don't, you're not maximizing your life. And if you don't, then you're not worthy of love, because I was projecting my own deep insecurities. So the advice that I think is the most powerful is you don't have to do anything to be worthy of love. But when that fullness exists within and you bring that to whatever you do, then it can be so much more, because you can make decisions from a place of objectivity, not make decisions from a place of insecurity. So in my business, if I had a call and it's like, do I get that big premises or do I just get a smaller premises? It wasn't just what's going to help make me feel the most fulfilled. It was, if I don't go bigger, I'm worthless. So I made poor decisions. So if I brought fulfillment to that situation, I'm like, what do I really want? And I could choose. So anyway, you're perfect the way you are. Sounds like cheesy, but trust me, it's so much more powerful, and it's going to lead to so much more of an amazing life once you've got that as a foundation. Because from there, you can build resilience. Courage is not building a really big business, just comes from taking action. But you can do all those things and still not be fulfilled. And that in itself is the ultimate failure, I think.
And when you embody that you are worthy of love, again, like you said, it doesn't mean it's not conditional. It's not, you're worthy of love if you do this, if you take me on a date, if you work this certain job or earn this salary or have this many followers. You're worthy of love now and always.
Yes.
if you put those conditions on yourself, you're always trapped in that box.
Yes.
So what would be the advice you would give your 16-year-old self?
It would be to enjoy life and experiment. To enjoy and experiment. See, Gary Vee says experiment, right? Whereas that's from the growth line. Like if I summarize fulfillment, I said the 4 things before. I'm going to summarize it. Love and grow. Connect and grow. Enjoy and grow. So growth is important. And growth is being able to understand what your stretch is and lean into it and evolve. Take feedback from your situation and then just lean into it to evolve. Creation, maintenance, destruction. So the advice I'd give my 16-year-old self is enjoy now and listen, and whatever advice that I see in terms, because advice comes from anywhere. Yeah. You could walk past a billboard and see an idea for something and then just launch your own version of it. That's advice. Like when people say advice from the universe, doesn't mean that an angel flies into your periphery and then just hands you a little note saying, do this. It just means you've seen something, and an idea in your head can be advice from the universe. When you get those little ideas that pop in, do them and experiment. Don't be attached to anything. Yeah. And that's going to put you on a journey of so much growth and achieving so much. But being able to enjoy the present while you're going out and experimenting and really taking the time to integrate, that's such a powerful combination. And I think most people won't do either of those things well. Yeah, so most 16-year-olds will either go hard at something, but they won't be open to executing on any ideas. They'll be very scared, and when they get an idea, they'll just do the thing that they're told from other people to do anyway. Whereas if you go out and you're just I want to travel around South America, then do it and learn from it, get experience from it. But trust your opinion more than anyone else's opinions, and then you learn way quicker. Because everything that other people told me to do when I was younger, I didn't do anyway. Or I did it for a very short period of time, and then I was like, stuff this, I'm doing my own path. Yeah. But sometimes when I delayed and someone said, no, you got to go to uni, and I spent 6 months doing what they said I should do instead of listening to myself, then when I went and did my own thing anyway, doing my own thing wasn't always the best thing, but I learned from it really quickly. So if I had ignored all other people's advice and just done what I got ideas around, then my learning curve would have been so quick. Yeah. And I would have achieved more financially in terms of finding what I enjoyed doing a lot quicker. So I think that's really important. And then just enjoying the present moment. Having said that, give yourself grace. I'm giving multiple things. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I really want to push these messages to these 16-year-olds that are watching. Give yourself grace, because what is important to understand from an archetypal development, we go through these phases of growing different parts of our internal representation of the world. And when people are at that 16, 18-year-old as a male, I'm talking to male, but women go through something similar. I just understand it slightly less because I'm not a woman than men. But I know that particularly for men that are 16, 18, they go through this archetypal stage called the hero. And the whole purpose of this hero that then matures and grows into a warrior as part of the internal archetype, the whole purpose behind it is to make you ignorant, arrogant, independent, so that you have enough ignorance and blind, deaf, and dumb enough just to not listen to anyone anyway, and then just go and do your own shit and start making a bunch of mistakes. So that part of you is actually really stupid. To be honest with you, 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds, you're actually going to make a lot of stupid decisions. But that's how you're wired. So you separate from the nest, i.e. you leave your family and go do stuff in the world. Yeah. If you didn't have that desire or that belief system that you're different, better, arrogant, ignorant, then you'd just stay where you were. So give yourself grace for all those mistakes that you make, because you're actually you don't actually know that much at 16 from a worldly perspective. But you got to trust what you do know within yourself, and then give yourself grace for all those stupid stuff ups you're going to have, because you're going to do lots of them. And so we want you to do as many as possible, as quick as possible, while you give yourself grace for making those mistakes and enjoy the process at the same time, which is a mean combo.
Love that. So go make mistakes. Trial and error. Like, I think that's a big thing as well. Like,
Yeah.
you said try things, and if you don't like them, you don't do them. Like,
Yeah.
but you don't know unless you try them. And I think, along so many people's paths, it is following that script or laid out plan of life of go to uni, do this. But what if you don't actually like what you're studying? Yeah, but that's what everyone does. Just goes to uni. So try it. And if you don't like it, it's okay to change. Where I've seen in society or in the public, in the community, where when people do change from trying something, oh, you've wasted time, you've wasted money. No. If you have then done something and not felt good in it, would you rather stay with a relationship for another 5 years that doesn't feel good and isn't right, and that continues for 5 years, or stop it now?
Yeah.
You'd rather stop
Yeah,
now.
I'd rather stop it now, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing that I found difficult when I was younger is I really didn't have that much exposure to different role models and mentors. So it was quite difficult for me to trust my own ideas, because even though and this is what's really important, listen and trust advice from people who have experienced more of a life that you want to live. And for me, I remember I used to read books like Richard Branson's autobiographies when I was younger, and some business leaders when I was 16, 17, 18. And when I read these books, I thought, wow, this person's amazing, but they're such a unique, different person. That's not normal, and I couldn't be that person. So I kind of wanted to trust their advice, but I thought it's not applicable to me, because that person's some weird interesting, unique case. And then I felt all I could trust is people that are normal, and my parents are normal. But that's such nonsense. Such nonsense. So it's so important to actually trust that and realize you legitimately can do anything that you set your mind to. However, it's not always going to be what you think it's going to be. Yeah. So if you wanted to have $100 million business, I'm telling you, you could have it. But what it means is a lot of sacrifice. Yeah. It means a lot of sacrifice. So most of the things that you think are going to give you this incredible life, you're only looking at the benefit of the situation. And when you can kind of ground yourself and realize there's benefits and drawbacks to whatever you choose. So let's say you choose to go to uni. Okay, I'm going to try to hit some really important point home. Every decision that you make in every moment, I just made a decision to put my hand there. So by putting my hand here, I didn't put it here. So I made this decision and I didn't make this. And that happens in every moment, compounded for let's say 10,000 decisions a day, every day over 50 years. So everyone is making all these random unique things. Their lives are becoming more unique in every second. And more different. And when you choose something, you don't choose something else. So if you choose to go to uni, you didn't choose to start a business. So if you then compare yourself to someone that started a business, you're comparing your situation to theirs, and you're looking at their benefits, but you're missing your benefits. Because choosing to go to uni has benefits. You can party more. You probably get to learn from some more experienced people. When you're running your own business, you learn from your own mistakes. You don't have that guidance from lecturers and stuff. So if you choose the uni path and you miss the benefits from this situation, you're lacking gratitude, which means you're going to feel crap, because you're comparing yourself versus this person. This person didn't get these benefits from uni. The entrepreneurial person didn't get the benefits of partying. So it makes no sense to choose your exact path, because your life is, you've chosen every single thing, and you always will. Whatever life you want to have, you can have. So what most people do is then compare their life with other people, and they don't see their own half of the equation, that is the benefits that they've chosen for themselves, which are brilliant and different and unique, more unique than it's so unique. And so if you can see your own benefits and also see your own drawbacks, and you can see other people's benefits that they've chosen and their drawbacks, then you give yourself permission to be a massive fan of your own life. Yeah. And that breeds so much confidence. Whereas if you're looking at someone else and being but look how awesome their life is, then you're only looking at their benefits and you've missed your own. And you're not looking at their drawbacks, but you're looking at your own. So having that grounded perspective of their path's got benefits and drawbacks. There's good things, there's bad things to it. Whatever path you're on right now also has good things and bad things. And therefore, be grateful for the good things that you have. And then you're going to experience more love and joy and more confidence as well.
Great advice. 16-year-olds. And for people who aren't 16, at any age, really. What is consciousness to you? What does it mean to be conscious?
Yeah, so I would say consciousness is what we spoke about with that. So I'm going to talk about meditation as the easiest way to experience consciousness. Yeah. And this is going to be a little bit deep. So if you're like, what is this woo-woo stuff? Then you're thinking what I thought when I heard this for the first time. So I get where you're at, and just give yourself the benefit of listening and trying on what I'm talking about. So when you meditate, doing a being technique, essentially what that is, because there's lots of different types of meditation.
Yep.
There's mindfulness, there's focusing, connecting techniques, there's guided meditations, there's vipassanas, which is like 10-day silent retreats, or there's being techniques. Vedic meditation, transcendental meditation, or TM, which is what a guy called Maharishi brought Vedic meditation to the West and called it TM. Now, Maharishi taught the Beatles to meditate. Maharishi taught Oprah to meditate. Maharishi taught Ray Dalio, who's like a really famous business hedge fund manager, taught Katy Perry, Russell Brand, all these like big celebrities, right? They learnt transcendental meditation, which is a twice a day 20-minute practice. And I teach a technique called the One Giant Mind Being Technique. They're all being techniques, and what that means is that you get given a mantra, and a mantra, we think of mantras as like phrases that we read out that are like empowering, like what they call like affirmations. Yeah. But in this case, a mantra actually means in Sanskrit, which is the language which it originated from, it means mind vehicle, which means that phrase or sound or whatever it is, like takes your mind somewhere. Mm-hmm. And the sort of mantra that you use when you do a being technique is a transcendence mantra. And so its purpose is that you repeat this sound in your mind over and over again as a central point of focus. And you actually, by repeating this sound, the sound does the heavy lifting. It transcends your mind to the point where you slip through the cracks of your thoughts and end up in this state called being. And when you're in a state of being and you do this meditation, I literally, I don't coach anyone that doesn't practice a being technique now because of how much it fundamentally changes your life. So that's for anything, which is crazy because like usually I'm really open to anything. Do whatever, like whatever works for you. But in this case, it's like, I so believe in it because I've seen so many, like 6 million people were taught to meditate by Maharishi. It's just such a game changing. So when you're in a state called being, you're not awake and you're not asleep, but you don't know that you're in it until you're out of it. So you do this 20-minute meditation, you might be in a state of being for 10 minutes of it, and it'll just feel like it goes like this, and you come out and you're like, what was that? You're in a state of being. This state of being is pure awareness. But the reason that you don't know that you're in it when you're in it is because our mind's nervous system isn't powerful enough to be able to experience it, because it's absolute pure total awareness or consciousness experienced, like it's oneness. So it's everything and nothing. And Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot when he talks about energy turning to matter. That we again, you just gotta stick in here for this conversation because it's all wacko and weird and woo-woo and scientific, and it's hard to grasp onto, but it'll progress your knowledge. Even if you don't fully grasp it off the back end of this, you'll progress your understanding of consciousness. So he talks about this idea that electrons, if anyone knows like atoms that have like a neutron, a proton, that's like both in the nucleus, and then there's an electron that's like a little orbiting planet around the thing, in the science diagram with the styrofoam and the toothpicks and whatever, that those electrons only appear when they're observed. So we observe them, but they don't actually exist until we observe these electrons, which is crazy, this idea. And so what happens is there's infinite potential that exists, like infinite different potential and possibilities for every situation, which is kind of like that choice thing I was talking about before. And they only appear when they're observed. So when you think I'm going to do this thing next is when it becomes a reality. So these electrons only appear when we think about them. And what this essentially equates to is this state of being, which essentially in universal terms or spiritual wisdom terms, it essentially means it's infinite potential and it's just there. It's nothing because but it's also everything because it doesn't exist. It's just energy, but then it becomes apparent when it's observed and it manifests in the world as a physical thing. So what's the point of this state of being? Well, it is what naturally allows us. And when we familiarize ourselves with a state of being, because when we meditate twice a day for 20 minutes, we're exposing ourselves to this state of being because we go into it for a period of time and we become more exposed to it. It's kind of like going to the gym. I mentioned this earlier, kind of like going to the gym, but for our mind. And that state of being strengthens the witness, and that's awareness as well. So this witness allows us to be aware, but also when we're in a state of being, we naturally and spontaneously, like being is fulfillment. Because when you're nothing and everything, then there's no need to go outside of yourself to feel fulfilled. So it does two things. When you're in a state of being, which I believe is pure consciousness to answer the question, or pure awareness, or the absolute, or isness. There's lots of ways that people talk about this, oneness or whatever. When you're in that state, you're enough because you're everything in that moment when you experience it. And when you're associated to that, you don't have to go outside of yourself to get anything because you're all potential in that moment. That's from a spiritual perspective. Then from a physical perspective, living in the world, being relevant, materializing things in the world, then what happens is when you're connected to that state of being, you naturally and spontaneously prioritize love, growth, love, because you're symbiotic. So you have that sense of belonging and you have a desire to connect, which is what from a Vedic worldview is the reason that the world exists. Why not just stay as infinite potential? Because the universe wants to experience itself as every possibility. So it created this playground in which it wants to experience all these different random connection points. So that's why love is one of the purposes, or spontaneous actions of someone who's fulfilled. So when you expose yourself to being, you naturally connect more with people, prioritize growth because the witness creates awareness. So you're more across what needs to change in your life. And when you make that change, you grow more because you've just worked through something that needs to evolve. So growth, that sense of belonging, and therefore naturally wanting to serve as well. So these four things, these four actions, which I believe is fulfillment, that fulfillment I would say is consciousness because you're fulfilled, but it doesn't feel fulfilling because it's not showing up in the manifest. So it's just energy if you're in a state of being or consciousness. But when consciousness actually manifests in the real world, it shows up in those four things. So it shows up as fulfillment with acts of service, connecting, love, and that sense of belonging. So I know that's like quite convoluted, but that's kind of like my current map with it. And I'm not a scientist. What's that? The study of all of that. They talk about, I can't even remember. It's physics. Quantum physics. Yeah. I'm not a quantum scientist or a physicist. I'm just someone that really has done a lot of personal development work. And when this was taught to me for the same time, my question I asked myself is, so what? What's the point of knowing all this stuff? But my mind wasn't in a position where it actually realized there was more to life than achieving. But when I realized that fulfillment was a thing, and I exposed myself to being, which I've been doing for the last couple of years, and I do right now in this moment naturally prioritize connection, growth, belonging. I feel a sense of belonging, and I also naturally serve more, like just to the community or to people I meet or in any situation, because I've experienced it. Then now I'm like happy to talk about it because it's actually real. Like I've experienced it as being real. So now it's like the most incredible transformation I've ever had. And I feel that sense of fulfillment because I've exposed myself to consciousness or pure awareness in that state of being when I slip through the cracks of my thoughts when I meditate. And then that shows up as fulfillment in the real world, which is really cool because 2 years ago, when I realized that I was growing from insecurity, I was lost. I had no idea how I was going to show up. I had 100,000 followers on Facebook and I was like, what the hell am I going to say to them? Because everything I was telling them before was coming from a place of insecurity and I was projecting that insecurity onto them and then having them follow that same path. What do I even talk about now? And so I didn't talk. I haven't really spoken for the last couple of years because I haven't felt like I actually have something worth talking about because I was lost myself. And so I've done over 1,000 hours of meditation over the last 2.5 years. And just like done so much, but I've had over 200 coaching sessions with different coaches and stuff, just really trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. And it's actually settled from doing all that. Like, 'cause people think meditation, it's easy. You're just relaxing. It's the easy road. It's soft. But when you meditate and you expose yourself to that state of being and the witness comes in, when you're aware of things that need to change, you can't just turn a blind eye anymore. So people think it's the easy road, but it's actually zoom, because let's say you meditate and then you realize you're with the wrong partner and you've got to leave them. That's not just relaxing. That's a really big, hard decision to make, but that's growth. That's fulfillment in the real world. Or if you like now know that you're growing from a place of insecurity to try to prove yourself in a business, you don't actually care about that anymore. And you know that you're going to feel fulfilled when you connect with someone. It's hard to break that pattern of wanting to go and do that work from the wrong place. And you're going to make changes in your life, which is really difficult, but it's way more fulfilling. So yeah, that's a little bit about meditation and what I think consciousness is at this. But ask me in 2 years' time, and I might have a different view. Who knows? But this feels very real for me.
Yeah, amazing. I want to wrap this up. It's been an incredible conversation, and I just want to say and acknowledge you for the human that you are, for how open and vulnerable and real you were today with me. Like I said, I didn't know much about your story. I'd followed you, but to hear all of this is like, whoa. You've done the work, you're doing the work, you're committing to yourself to be, but then also share that with others. And I think that's what inspires myself. That's what inspires the people that you talk to and connect with, because you're showing up for yourself. And as much as you had, incredible, business success and all of that, which at the time was fulfilling in certain ways, and people are like, that's, done that. Right now, doing this and admitting to all of this is like, man, I'm so proud of you.
Thanks,
but
man.
like it also reflects back onto me, and I go, oh man, like there's parts of me where I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of that too, because of you sharing that. And to go through what you've gone through to then make these shifts when they can be and probably are the most challenging things is really awesome. And I admire that a lot about you. And this conversation together has been incredible. Everyone listening, everyone watching, how can they connect with you on all your platforms?
Yeah, cool. So ryanmagic.com, or just search Ryan Magic in any social media platforms. I'm mainly on Facebook and Instagram. If you really want to keep up with the musings, I do a lot of Insta stories. Yep. So Instagram would probably be the platform of choice. It's where I've got the least followers, but that's where I'm the most active because I really enjoy it. But yeah, if you just go to ryanmagic.com. Or send me an email. If you got a specific question, just send an email to ryan@ryanmagic.com.
Yeah.
Would love to hear from you, hear feedback on the interview, or if you got a question, hit me up and let me know. But what I mainly do now, if there's any entrepreneurs who have kind of whoa, all this consciousness stuff is pretty crazy, and I want to know how to amplify that, then I do meditation courses once a month here. We're moving soon, but it's like a passion project of mine. So it's where I wish as an entrepreneur, I had me a couple of years ago that could guide me to be able to develop myself and create grounded confidence, achieve what I wanted, but from a place of fulfillment. So if that resonates, send me an email at ryan@ryanmagic.com. And I've loved chatting today. And I really appreciate your acknowledgement. I received that, man. I really feel like we're on such a similar journey as well. Different, but similar. And this has been so much fun. I'm so grateful that we've connected as well.
You're so welcome. I'm equally as grateful. If you've enjoyed this, if anything has triggered you, if you've resonated with anything, if anything has inspired you, reach out to us. We'd love to hear the feedback. Take a screenshot, put it on your Instagram, Facebook, share it with someone you think needs to hear this as well. I think for a lot of my friends that I'm thinking in my head now, it's like, those ones that were so business focused but so disconnected from themselves, that get so much out of this as well. So make sure you subscribe, YouTube, podcast links. Until next time, peace.